Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday and it is the view from the top. We are live for an amazing show. I'm so excited. We have backstage, we have Anna Monsalve from Kearney, and we have Kristen Dardani from Brainlabs. And we are going to be talking about the hugely important subject of business travel and remote work and how you manage them. It is such an important subject. I think, to be honest, it can be a headache for many people managing the complexities of business travel, but it's a headache that we need to face up to, if that's not mixing a metaphor. But anyway, if you're out there, tell us who you are, where you are, join in the conversation. We want to know all your news. Tell us what's going on in your lives. We have got an amazing show for you today. We are live right now on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube, and we are available on Spotify. So amazing stuff out there. Now, I know a lot of you who tune in also want your CPE codes, and we have CPE codes. We have them from ERC, and everyone, best wishes for the summit upcoming in Salt Lake City. But we have the CPE codes from ERC. We also have the CPE codes from HRCI and from SHRM, courtesy of our really good friends at Rocket Mortgage. So that's an amazing show we've got lined up for you today. And then next week, we've got another really interesting show for you. Next week, we're going to be talking about how compliance gets strategic. And in particular, we're going to focus on I-9s, the US certification for when you start work, to make sure you're legal to work. And we're going to be talking about onboarding and the future of legal tech. And we're very excited. We've got with us Robert Horsley, Daniel Brown, and Rico Fontana, all from Workright, which is a fragment company. So that's an amazing show we got next for next week. But also a lot's been going on in the last week in the wonderful world of global mobility. So let's see, everybody, what's been going on in our world over the last 7 days. So there we have it. Lots of interesting breaking news, lots of people who've been promoted or have got new jobs, and indeed lots of job opportunities out there. Just to give a particular shout out, a couple of people I've seen who are really, long-term viewers and friends of the show who've got new jobs, and a big shout out to Sarah Kinnaid and to Tara Hagen, but especially a big shout out to Michelle Durkin, formerly my co-presenter on this show, who has now started a new role, and many congratulations to my good friend and former co-host Michelle Durkin and everybody else. We've got a fascinating conversation coming up for you today. We've also got some really exciting breaking news we're going to share with you in just a few minutes. We're going to share with you details of this year's top 100 list. Every year we do a top 100 list. This year we're opening nominations today in just a few minutes, and it is really exciting list that we're going to be doing this year. So hang on, stay with us. In about 10 minutes time, we're going to be sharing out details of who that is, or what the list is rather. So we're going to move on. We're going to now talk about immigration. We've got Julie Onslow Cole backstage talk about immigration. Then after that, we're going to be talking about tax with Julie Barron and with Dan from the Dan Hager from the Netherlands. But let's just talk about immigration, so everybody, you know how it works. hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's bring onto our stage the one and only Julia Onslow Cole.
Hi,
Julia.
Brian.
Hi, always good to see you. I know you've been very, very busy this week. So tell us what's new.
Oh, first of all, I quickly want to say congratulations to Michelle too. And she's such a trooper. And I never, ever forget the show that we did where her electricity went in her house and she actually sat in her car. Do you remember? And started the car.
I do remember that, yeah.
The hard engine to power up her laptop. But yeah. So I've been at the Labour Party conference all week, and I just wanted to today just give you some highlights from the Labour Party conference.
And that's the UK Labour Party, which is the government. So that's equivalent of in the US terms, that's equivalent of a convention of the governing party. Yeah. Yeah,
and there's a day which was Monday where business leaders could go. And mostly CEOs, and I went in my capacity as the chair of the board for the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we were with the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and the key ministers, so hearing directly from them. So I just wanted to just bring a couple of things from that. One of them was interview with Keir Starmer, our UK Prime Minister, and they said to him, "Oh, you're really good at predictions. You know, we always ask you, like, what do you predict? And everything you've predicted is true. So could you leave us with a prediction?" And he actually said, "I predict that over the next few years, the UK will have a much stronger relationship with Europe." And I think that's quite interesting for our global mobility leaders to think at. And also Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, said that there would be an announcement very shortly of a very ambitious agreement between the UK and the EU around the youth mobility scheme, which would allow people from the UK to go to Europe and vice versa to have cultural experiences and work experience. Now, this would be a great lever for business, and that's something to really look out for and watch out for the announcements.
That's effectively bringing back freedom of movement, or a move towards freedom of movement for the whatever it is, under 35s or under 30s.
So it's a really important development to look out for. The other thing to say is that there was a great acknowledgement by a number of ministers that global mobility leaders and business leaders were finding it hard to swallow the high visa fees, and that, you know, particularly on some groups of talent who are under huge competitive interest from other countries, you know, perhaps a new look should be had at perhaps the fees or perhaps the way the visas are, and that's something that the government acknowledged.
Are you saying that as the US raises visa fees, the UK and maybe other countries as well are actually thinking about reducing visa fees?
Well, I think just as a generalization, all countries are looking to make their own immigration scheme as competitive as possible. I mean, even in the last 2 or 3 hours, Fragment have just done a big bulletin on Saudi Arabia, where the Saudi Arabian government have hailed that they will be introducing good provisions for dependents who want to work on the back of visas in Saudi. So I think every country recognizes that there are pools of talent that are in scarce supply across the world, and everyone should be looking to see what they can do for those. I mean, we had a discussion in the green room before we came on, and Laurie was saying, you know, rightly, that there was, you know, new provisions in the UAE to attract talent, and we're seeing it all across the world. The other thing I wanted to highlight, 2 more things. One other one is the fact that the government has put in an intention down to increase the period that you need to stay in the UK to get indefinite leave to remain. I actually went to the discussion, which was between Michael Gove, interestingly enough, and Shabana Mahmood, our Home Secretary, and she explained the rationale for that. You know, the fact that she felt that it was important for integration, that people actually spend more time in the UK before they get indefinite leave, and there will be more of a contribution-based scheme. So it won't just be you've done your time, now you get indefinite leave. It's like, what contribution do you make in terms of national insurance payments, or contributions, or English, or and other contributions. And I want to raise that out because I think it's an important thing for global mobility leaders to consider, because a lot of them don't sponsor indefinite leave applications. And I think that's something perhaps they should be looking at, particularly if they have a large population who might already be entitled to indefinite leave now, and that might be something to accelerate. But there's going to be consultations on that. And finally, I just wanted to say something about these new digital ID cards. That's a big thing in the UK. It's already, a discussion point in many other countries. And we've seen as well that not just digital ID cards, but we've also seen governments utilize digitalization to really improve their services. So the idea of this new digital ID card in the UK is really to tackle illegal immigration. It would be really harder for people to claim they have a right to work. If ID cards were enforced, I think immediate would be voluntary, but then the idea is perhaps it could be mandatory.
Because we're going to be talking about right to work next week as well on the show.
Yes.
But I think one of the interesting things is that typically, if you like, the way a lot of countries do right to work now, it checks and they ask you to show a passport or show proof of evidence, whatever. Those things can be quite easily faked.
Yes.
And it's quite hard for the employer to actually check whether they're fakes. Whereas a digital ID, which is going to be linked into the government systems, is going to be much harder to fake. So presumably the security is much better. Yeah.
Yes. And I think one thing to say is that I think the idea of what the idea of it is quite misunderstood in lots of quarters, because actually the idea is to give you a lot of more privacy, in the sense that the information would be compartmentalized and it would be under your authority. So for example, if I wanted to work for you, Brian, I could give you access to that part of my digital identity which had my right to work, but I could share that with you, but you wouldn't see anything else about me. And I think that's important. And Fragment are doing a huge amount of work on digital identity and really are at the forefront of all these discussions. But I think that, people are very concerned, but I think that perhaps when they understand exactly how the whole thing would work, perhaps they might feel it would be beneficial.
Okay, so thank you so much for that update, Julia. We're going to move on. The world is clearly changed. It's clearly going to become much more digital. As we know, we've talked about it on other shows in the past. Things like wet stamping of passports, is disappearing. I'm sure it won't be too long until passports start disappearing and everything becomes everything becomes digital in terms of that hard copy. But we're going to move on now. We've talked about immigration. We're now going to move to talk about tax. And in fact, on our world tour, we're now going to the Netherlands. So everybody, you know how it works. As we say thank you to Julie Onslow-Cole, and we welcome to our stage Julie Barron and Dan Hager from Vialto Partners. Please, everybody, hit that heart button, hit that like button, and hit the applause button. Hi, Julie, and welcome back, Dan. It's good to see you again. So, Julie, just give us a bit of an introduction, then we'll hand over to Dan.
Yes, so I'm excited to have Dawn here with us. There's some changes happening in the Netherlands. There was a budget, but they've also got an election coming. And as I keep trying to remind my clients, the 30% ruling is now going to be 27 in 2027. So we keep needing to remember that 2027.
27 and 27. That's
27 and 27 is the easy way to remember it. So we need to see that because, 2027 is not that far away. But over to you, Don.
Yes, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, indeed, compared to, the past consecutive years, fairly no changes in essence to the Dutch expat tax regime this year. That is mainly due to the fact that we have an interim government currently in the Netherlands. We are awaiting the upcoming elections at the end of October, beginning of November. So that means that there were no substantial changes now because everybody's preparing for the elections. That does mean that while there are for now no changes announced to the Dutch expat tax regime, unlike other years, we don't really have certainty what's going to happen before the end of this year and what could happen still with respect to the Dutch expat tax regime. If you see the trend of the past couple of years, we have had now 3 years in succession where there were changes proposed to the Dutch expat tax regime, and they were all, not really good news for expats, so to say. And if you see now which parties do it well in the polls in the Netherlands, that are some parties are more on the extremer side of the spectrum, so to say, and those are the same parties who have tried to get even harsher measures against Dutch expats in the past years. So it could very well be that whoever wins the election is going to propose to make further changes to the budget plans that could very well impact expats and people who are entitled to the Dutch expat tax regime. So that could be a reason, because a similar trend is that whenever there was a change proposed during the budget plans, there were always transitional rules included, which usually had a cutoff at the end of the year in which they were announced, and they immediately came to effect the year after. So that could be for certain employers, once there's a little bit more sight on who's very likely going to win the election, or when certain plans are leaked before that, to expedite start dates of expats who are scheduled to come to the Netherlands early 2026, to have them start at the end of 2025 already physically here in the Netherlands, just to make sure that if something changes and there are transitional rules, that they are entitled to that. Because the voting in the Dutch Senate, so then when only the legislation is going to be final, is only scheduled just before Christmas, and by that time it will very likely be too late. The fact that there are no new changes announced doesn't mean that nothing is changing with respect to the Dutch expat tax regime, because some of the changes that already became part of the legislation during the past years have yet to come into effect. And unlike last year, when we saw that, one of the changes with respect to the tax-free allowance was changed from 30% to 20 and 10%. That was reversed, and instead we got the 27% in 2027, as Julie already said. There's no such reversal this year, which means that things are going to change already at the 1st of January 2026, because some transitional rules are lapsing. So the cap of the maximum tax-free allowance will lapse. The transitional rules for everyone, there will be a capped benefit of the expat tax regime as of January 1st. And also as of the 1st of January 2027, the transitional rules will have lapsed for the abolishment of the partial non-residency taxpayer regime, which was a second benefit of the expat tax regime, which in essence meant that expats didn't have to pay taxes on almost all of their assets and private wealth. So that's especially an attention point for employers who have broad tax equalization policies that also cover personal asset taxation. Those transitional rules will lapse certainly as of the 1st of January 2027. And next to that, we have the Dutch taxation based on the deemed return on investment on those assets. The taxation thereof will increase because the deemed return on investment is significantly increasing already as of the 1st of January 2026, or at least that's proposed with these budget plans. So to summarize, while there is no really not a new update, so to say, with respect to the expat tax regime, it could very well be that there will be new changes announced quite late in the year compared to earlier years. And that even if that doesn't happen, that there will be further changes coming into effect with the Dutch expat tax regime as of 2026 and 2027.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So everybody, a big thank you to Dan and to Julie. And we're now going to go on to talk about the top 100 for next year. I'm going to bring on the wonderful Tali Gorin, our producer. So she deserves every heart, every applause, every love, every like that you can give. So hit those buttons. And we're going to be talking about our top 100 list. And well, you'll see when the video runs, but we think it is going to be a great one. So everybody, let's move on and talk about this year's top 100 list. I love it. It's the top 100.
I didn't get enough excitement from the audience. Guys, where are your claps? Where are your cheers? We're going to have such an exciting presentation this time. The AI champions.
I mean, if I look back, but a couple of years ago, if I'd said with AI, people would have not known what we were talking about. And then even last year or so, we said, oh, AI, and people said, not sure. We did polls on it. How often do you use something as basic?
It wasn't adopted at all in global mobility, and now.
Yeah, everyone's using it. Everyone's talking about it. So tell us how it's all going to work, Tali. I'm so excited for this list.
Yes, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. And we actually have some new things this time. So the first one of them is the possibility for self-nomination. So Brian, I want to just quickly share my screen so that everyone can see. And I've shared the link to this. So this is our page, our top 100 page. And if you want to nominate, you have the link that I've shared. And you'll be able to submit your nomination. Now, let's go quickly through that. So, of course, name of the nominator, and here you can add your nominees, up to 10 nominees. But what you can also do this time is this here. So you can actually nominate yourself. Now, when you nominate yourself, what we're asking, and we're actually going to contact everyone who's nominated for this competition. We're asking you to please share with us a prompt or a use case that you've used in global mobility in order to make yourself an AI champion. And that could be anything. Maybe you use it in order to rewrite your policy. Maybe you use it in order to understand a complex tax term. Anything that you use, please share with us. There's also a question there, if you're willing for us to share this with the community with your name. If you don't want it, that's perfectly fine. We will later on post all these wonderful prompts with or without names because we want to enrich the community. We may create some kind of a library, global mobility AI usage library. But
so I'll just ask the audience now out there. I mean, if you're using AI, you're doing something cool, write it in the comments box now. I mean, obviously, we want you to nominate yourself or be nominated, but let's keep the conversation going as the show goes on. It may be that you're using AI to write a new policy. It may be you're using AI to help with a bit of calculations, cost estimates. Maybe you're using it to track. It may be you're using it for research. I mean, whatever you're doing, write something in the comments box. Tell us what you're up to. We'd love to know.
And our comments box is open for everyone who's watching this show. Unfortunately, the top 100, as always, is only for corporate members. So vendors and everyone else can nominate. So this is open for everyone to nominate, but the nominees would be only corporate. So please nominate your AI champion today. And just before I leave you to this wonderful panel that is waiting in the green room, I just wanted to mention that that AI, that Benivo is really big in AI, and we actually call it MI, so mobility intelligence. And we had a lot of excitement in the big reveal that we did for the MI a few weeks ago. And we want to repeat that. Unfortunately, we're not recording these sessions because there's a lot of special things there that we're not sure we want to publish yet. It's kind of in your ears when you join these sessions. But I do invite everyone who wants to join to register. I posted the link and to learn a bit about AI for global mobility. MI, there's MI for that.
Excellent. That's so exciting. So anyway, so nominations are now open to nominate someone to be a top 100 AI champion. So that's coming up now. And then the big reveal is on the 3rd of December?
3rd of December. So nominations are open until the 5th of November. And then on the 3rd of December, we're going to have the big reveal.
Brilliant. Okay, so out there, get nominating. We're now going to move on. We're going to be talking about business travel. We've got an amazing panel waiting for us. We've got Benivo's Laurie Ryan. We've got Anna Monsalve from Kearney, and we've got Kristen Dardani from Brainlabs. So everybody, I've said this before and I'll say it again, but you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's talk all about business travel. Hello. Now, we've all got something in common, is that we were all on a Changemakers call just a few weeks ago, days ago, even, when we were talking about we were talking about business travel and some of the issues. But let's just start off with the introductions. Kristen, I'll start with you. Tell us a bit about you, Brainlabs, and indeed, your involvement with Changemakers.
Hello. I've been a change maker for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years now, a while. And I've been in mobility for a couple of decades. I'm based in the US. I work for Brainlabs, which is a British-based global digital marketing company. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Anna, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Brian. So good to be in the show again. Well, I am the senior manager for talent mobility at Kearney. I have been here for 3.5 years, and I became a change maker a little bit before joining Kearney, probably 4 years ago. Kearney is a management consultant firm with presence in over 40 countries. That's me in a nutshell.
Cool. And if anybody out there in the audience isn't a change maker and would like to become a change maker, and you're a mobility professional in an in-house role, then do reach out to us and we'll see what we can do. Now, Laurie, I mean, you're with Benivo, but I've got to ask you something about AI, because we're talking about AI, and I know you are an AI, I don't know what the word is, aficionado, somewhere beyond champion. In fact, I saw your LinkedIn profile and it said, you make AI feel less scary. So tell us a bit about yourself, Laurie.
Let's see. Relatively new to the Benivo team in the client development space, but for the last 2.5 years, I've been leading AI workshops and helping companies, nonprofits, organizations bring AI to their organizations and help take the fear out of the front lines, right? Because so many people are scared that if they start adopting these tools and trying, and it will replace them. So it's really been an effort about showing people how they can amplify themselves, get more time back in their day, and actually find joy and fun in working with these tools. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
Joy and fun. Well, there. We've got a target now there. But so let's get talking about business travel, because I sort of get different reactions when I talk about business travel. Some people say, oh, yes, we do it. We're on control of it. And other people turn around and say, not sure. You know, I'm not sure I want to go there. But Anna, let me just start with you. From a Kearney perspective, how do you handle business travel? I'm not just talking about the actual booking with the agent. I'm talking about the compliance aspects of it. How do you handle it from a Kearney perspective?
Yeah, and I think it's important to make that distinction, because sometimes when we talk about business travel, people say, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with their traveling and booking their hotels and their flights. And that's exactly right. I think there needs to be a clear separation of the function. So one thing is all the logistics. We don't get involved on that at all. That will happen with each team, and they work directly with the travel agency, which is fine. We definitely look after the compliance aspect. So anything, from immigration to taxes, social security, and any other sort of regulation that will enable the business and the consultants to do their work and to meet our clients in, any location that it needs to happen. So basically what we do is, by combining several tools that had been created in-house, and also by partnering with teams across the firm, we have been able to get a more comprehensive view of the business traveler's activity. I think like any other company out there, we probably couldn't say that it is 100%, in hand. I think there is, constant sort of, work in progress type of effort. But I think in the recent years, there had been a very significant progress in terms of, as I said, combining efforts, creating sort of an internal ecosystem of resources and tools and reports that allows us to have, that kind of broader overview. And I think what is very important here, what I'm always amazed, to the work that the team does, is that they have really fostered cross-function collaboration. Because I think that when we talked about business travelers, it is a complex process. It involves so many different angles. And I think for talent mobility or global mobility to take it all just on their own could be a big ask. So I think, if there are some teams out there that are still kind of debating whether they get on that and kind of embrace it or not, I would say, don't think that you need to do it on your own. Think about it as a way to collaborate and work with other teams, because I think by doing that is when you really have the better chances of, having a better process.
And I think, we'll get into some of that as the conversation goes on. But out in the audience, tell us how you manage business travel. Is it something that is under your remit from a mobility perspective, or is the control lying with the line or with a business travel department? Now, Kristen, I know you've got a different model at Brainlabs. So tell us about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Anna, we don't book the travel. That's handled through direct interface with the travel platforms. We also don't have any formal role in terms of the compliance. We do often get hit up by the traveler or by the assistant for the team the traveler sits in to identify ahead of time what they might need in terms of documentation to get into the particular country, or if they already know what they need, to help them with that, whether that be through a partner, an expediter who can get that documentation, or even just issuing invitation letters, employment verification letters, confirming processing times, costs, things of that nature. We don't have any involvement in things that are more important, like tracking total days of presence that a particular entity within Brainlabs is sending a particular country, where that's
who does that? Who does the tracking there?
No one does the tracking. So that's scary when you're, talking about a country like Switzerland, for example, which is going to have a cap for, in my case, like Brainlabs UK, in terms of total days of presence. Our entire company can spend on business travel in Switzerland in a year. So we definitely have a gap in that respect and need to have greater integration moving forward, or a tool that can help us track that, or loop in mobility to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We actually asked people about who manages business travel, and we gave people a few choices. We said, who manages it? Is it the business travel department? Is it mobility? Is it operating units, or is it no one? And it was pretty randomly split, actually, which I find quite interesting. That it went all ways. But out in the audience, again, do tell us. My view in all this is that. Is that business travel clearly is a headache, but maybe it's better to have a headache than actually find you don't have a job, because there's also, let's face it, it's that people are losing jobs at the moment in mobility, and actually the biggest growth area is business travel. So it does make me wonder, from an industry perspective, if there's more we as an industry can do to actually highlight some of the issues. I mean, Laurie, you're on the Changemaker call, without naming names of other companies that weren't there, but give us an idea of some of the other things you were hearing.
The biggest thing was hearing people's stories, and the complexity you touched on about how disjointed it is to manage this, because it touches so many departments. And I actually appreciated, Kristen, you shared a story related to the expats and whether they're remote work or business travel. Can you share more on that?
Yeah. Do you mean about the people who are doing our remote work program?
There were folks that, they're currently expats and they want to go home.
Yeah. So we have a program called Horizons 30 that allows people to work in a foreign country, a country other than their market of employment, for up to 30 total days. That's sort of the key, not just working days, but total days, boots on the ground, per year, per tax year of that country. And in the case of people who are expats working in a different market than their country of citizenship, often they want to go back to their home country for those 30 days. The challenge arises when they also are wanting to spend their vacation time in those countries. So they've spent sort of 2 weeks at Christmas time there and 2 weeks in the summer, and then they want to leverage this program and also spend 30 days on their Horizons 30 program. But the problem is that, at the end of the tax year, they've then spent 60 days in that country, and they're also a citizen of that country. And if they've also moved and they've become an expat recently and, have maybe moved from that country of citizenship in the tax year that this is all happening in, they've also, potentially had several months of residency in that country, and then these 60 days of presence on top of that. And, you have a tax liability that you're dealing with. And it's challenging for people who have a right to work in that country. And we also have a corporate presence for them to really wrap their head around that and to understand why that's not permissible. And, in some cases, we're also asking them to go back for business travel. And, you're then tacking that on top of it. And people are naturally a little, persnickety about you wanting to be involved in where they're spending their weekends and their vacation time. And an invasion, they feel like it's an invasion of privacy, and they want to know why you want to know that. So it's a tough thing to manage and to ask for information about, but it's a really critical thing to manage, not just for the tax bit, but obviously for the right to work piece as well. And, it obviously touches on permanent establishment risk, and my cat has joined us.
We need to know, what's the cat's name?
I have so many of them. This is Shy Guy. not seeming so shy today.
I love having a cat. I actually, so I don't know if it's still there. I saw Billy Ho was in the audience on the show earlier, and Billy very famously had his cat on the show, a bit like you did. From memory, Billy's cat was called Sticky Tofu. But I don't know whether Billy's there. If you are, shout us and let us know. But lovely to meet Shy Guy. So that's made my day. That's so cool. I'm going to move on to cats to talk about technology, Laurie, because this isn't the show when we're going to do a demo on Benivo's technology or anything like that. But I know that there is technology that we've got, and I know that this year I think over 100,000 moves, and maybe next year as many as 500,000 moves are going to be authorized through this platform. So just tell us what technology can do to make it easier.
You bet. Having data in one place and being able to manage a process end to end with a single tool is incredibly helpful, because what we heard is that information, again, lived in many different places. Everything took time, impacted the employee experience. So we were able to capture that in a single tool based on feedback from clients, that literally an employee can initiate a business travel request. They can know literally within 15 minutes they could be ready to travel. Automation of documents, whether it's invitations or insurance certificates or whatever it is, all of that happening seamlessly. And what all of that does is it provides employees comfort when they travel. It can be very stressful, and the last thing you want to do is show up at the airport and be told you can't go.
Yeah.
So that
or get to the airport and then be chucked out the other side when you land.
Yeah.
Or be called in for one of those hard interviews to find out exactly why you're there and are you on the right visa.
Or you can't go to the holiday party, right, Kristen?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we just announced last week that we're having a corporate holiday party in the US in early December, and mobility wasn't looped into the planning. And unfortunately, we have a number of people who work for the company who are not visa exempt and will need a B1 or B2 to come into the country, and based on their citizenship. And many of them are in the Toronto area, expats in Toronto, not Canadian nationals. And the processing time right now at the US Embassy, as many of you know, is like 705 days.
Inviting them to the 2027 Christmas
party. They
party.
can come to the 2027 holiday party. But if mobility had been involved in the travel planning process, we could have had a more elegant solution to that announcement and not gone back to them after the fact with the kind of solution.
Yeah, because there's two angles to this business travel. There's the employer angle, that you want to make sure that you're compliant, that you're not creating corporate risks or risking fines or security, you know what's going on. But then there's the employee angle as well, that the employee doesn't want to have a difficult experience. And Laurie, just tell us about how technology can manage the employee experience, but also give useful data to the corporate.
Absolutely. Well, with Benivo, there's mobility intelligence and an AI avatar, right? So the employee is able to ask questions and feel like they're interacting almost with a person and have that conversation.
Like a mock interview.
Yes. And, get some of those questions answered. And also what they find is sometimes when people are asking questions to these avatars, they don't feel like, it feels more comfortable. Believe it or not, in some cases, there's no dumb question. And so that helps a lot too. And incredibly powerful to have those questions answered at your fingertips based on information that has been vetted, not just necessarily going into ChatGPT blindly and asking a question that there's a potential chance it could be incorrect.
Okay. So Anna, let me bring you into the conversation. I mean, you're a large organization, you've got people who are consultants. They produce timesheets and they've got expense reports. So you've got a level of control over what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. But in terms of business trips, how's it organized? Is every trip pre-authorized? And I mean, how do you manage that process of making sure that, you know, people just don't hop on a plane on their own?
Right. So yes, definitely every business trip needs to be approved, you know, by a manager, by a partner. Ultimately, all charges will be hitting a cost center. So somebody needs to be approving, you know, that travel, that hotel expenses, whatever. So that is definitely one part of the equation. But the other part where our team actually comes into play is actually making sure that we are aware of what travel is happening across the organization. And that is where, you know, the education piece and the communication piece come hand to hand to help us, you know, foster that process. Because obviously we want to make sure that anyone that is crossing borders is pretty much aware of what are the potential implications. What are the activities that the consultant is going to be performing, for how many days or week is this person going to be abroad? What are the possible liabilities that either the firm or the employee might be facing? And that is where, you know, we encourage everyone, and we work very closely with our staffing managers, with our HR partners, in kind of, you know, passing that message that if you're crossing a border, please make sure that you do the proper tax assessment and that you also do your immigration assessment. Because as Lori said, you know, it depends of what sort of activity you're going to be performing and for how long. That will determine the type of visa that you need. So it is not just as easy as say, oh, well, I'm just going there for 2 weeks, you know, I should be okay. I'm not signing a contract, that then I should be okay just to get on the plane. And I think a lot of the issues or omissions that happen is just because people are not necessarily aware of what are the complexities. So I think that's where we come, you know, into play, you know, providing that information, giving enough resources for people to educate themselves and for us to educate them through different communications. We partner with our marketing team, producing news and updates on any changes that happen. You know, for instance, as we have seen so often in the recent times with immigration, we always try to be, you know, ahead of the game and make sure that people are aware of those changes so that they don't find themselves in an, you know, uncomfortable and risky situation. So yeah, I think it's kind of, you know, managing that education and communication.
You both touched on, is it okay if I step in, just like how blurry it can get between personal travel and business travel, or whether it's, oh, I'm going to extend this weekend, or maybe I'll just hop over to Paris from the UK for the weekend, and how that adds additional complexity too.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where, you know, it's not only sort of from a project perspective, it's not just completing your timesheet, but also kind of being accurate around what are the locations that you are touching during that trip. And to your point, it's very often when you find that a consultant will travel, you know, and they will have a business trip during the work days, but then it's like, oh, well, I'm already here, you know, I'm just going to spend the weekend and maybe, you know, take 1 day of vacation, you know, and go visit this fantastic location. But then they don't realize that, okay, I'm crossing a border right here, and I should be actually reporting those 3 days. As you said, if you're in the UK for work, but then you go to Paris for the weekend, you do need to report that. And it's not, you know, kind of us trying to be the policemen or anything like that. It's all the contrary. Is providing the necessary support and the necessary information so that we actually enable the consultants to do the job that they need to do, you know, while protecting the firm's reputation and ability to conduct business everywhere.
Yeah, as Philip Thomas put there, bleisure, business and leisure combined. So how does that work from your perspective, Kristen, at Brainlabs? I mean, when people are traveling, do you monitor the difference between business and leisure and try and control it? I mean, or these things are so hard, aren't they, to sort of keep a grip on?
I mean, I feel like post-COVID, it almost feels like the norm now, that people are combining those things. And I feel like laws increasingly enable it, but in a way it's harder now because the lines are blurrier. And I feel like I never, I feel like I can never counsel someone to be anything less than truthful with a border agent when they're being questioned about why they're entering the country. But equally, if someone is going somewhere for a week and they're working for 4 days, and on that 5th day, they're going to be a tourist, what do they say they're going to do? That's perhaps is not a great example, but it's tough because people are doing multiple things, and someone's visa may not permit both of those things. So maybe the better example is they're going for 4 days for vacation and they're going to work for 1 day. Do they reveal that? At the border, I can't tell someone not to reveal that because they're going to need a different visa. But realistically, if you
tell the other way that someone is just moving on vacation, and then they get asked by the line to do some work whilst they're there.
We have that happen.
Yeah. So someone's gone on holiday to the US, and then the boss phones up and says, "Well, whilst you're there, can you just pop down to the office in such and such?"
Well, the first thing the person says is, "Can you pay for my ticket home since you're asking me to do work?" Often, there's no visa issue because they're going to their home country for that trip. But we've definitely had that case and have had that business trip be in a nearby country and have had to, do a business visitor visa, which we would then facilitate. But there's a lot of shades of gray, and, you run the risk, like you obviously have to be compliant. You can't counsel anyone to say anything untruthful, but you also run the risk of, seeming like Pollyanna and not being nimble and not seeming like you're enabling, business and being realistic and being overly compliant. So
it used to be so easy, in the old days before technology, if we went on vacation, we were on vacation and we didn't do anything.
Right.
These days, I don't think I've stayed in a hotel recently where there hasn't been somebody sitting by the pool or on the beach at the same time doing a business call.
Right.
It's almost expected that somehow your vacation gets, some work is so important it's got to be dealt with whilst you're on vacation. But we never really think about that from a mobility perspective. But I do want to get onto another subject before the show ends, and that is this whole question of the rise of work from anywhere programs and some of the pitfalls in tracking presence there. Kristen, what are you up to with Brainlabs in terms of work from anywhere? Are you pro that, against that, hybrid? What are you doing?
Yeah, we've had a work from anywhere program for about 4 years. It's widely used. We've had people work from, dozens and dozens of countries. We have a whole eligibility framework in terms of performance and tenure. There's a whole application process, approval process, tracking process. It has to be a market where someone has the right to work and where we have a corporate entity, or they get a nomad visa that absolves us of PE risk and them of tax liability and us of tax liability. So it's been very popular. I believe that it has increased engagement and retention. We've heard from people that it's been a very big draw, as part of coming to the company and accepting an offer with Brainlabs. It's been popular. There are some pitfalls to it. I mentioned earlier, people wanting to use that program who are expats already and going back to their home country, which just gives too much time in that market, which is problematic. The other challenge is that a lot of nomad visas are really designed by their countries for people who are going there for a year or 6 months to a year or longer. And when you apply for them and you're only going for 30 days, the country says, well, no, just come in on a tourist visa. And so you've got that in writing from the embassy, but you're not coming in as a tourist, so there's some risk there. So that's tricky, and it also doesn't give you that protection against PE. So we found some challenge with that in a number of markets, but generally it's been good.
Okay, and Anna, what about you at Kearney? Work from anywhere. Where are you?
Right. We actually don't have a global program. And one of the reasons why we don't is because we'd rather have, one-on-one assessment. And we prefer to kind of look at every case and do the assessment, what is the country combination that is involved? What is the period of time that the employee is requesting? At the end of the day, it's not even talent mobility and tax decision whether the employee goes or not. We just do the assessment and we share the information with the local HR at home, because they need to decide whether this is going to be operationally efficient for them or not. Most of the time, you actually need the consultant to be right there with your clients, in the location where they are hired. But we also recognize that providing that flexibility, it's also, as Kristen mentioned, an attraction tool. And we want, for our employees to know that there is a possibility to kind of, consult with mobility, with HR, as to whether there is an option for them to do some remote work. And we, if it is possible and, the criteria are met and the compliance is there, then we definitely allow it. But we don't have a global policy. It will vary by location.
Okay, we've only got a few minutes left. There's a comment that's come in from Brenda Brown, which I think is quite interesting. I'd be interested in your views. And we'll leave it on screen for a moment. I'll just read out and then we'll take it off, because it's actually blocking the views of some of us. But Brenda says this: here are my 2 cents. Business travel impacts various functions, and it is advisable to have a small group of team members to work on business travel compliance. There has to be a lead, and typically this falls under global mobility or legal. The team should consist of representatives from global mobility / immigration, finance, stock administration, corporate tax, payroll, travel, legal, security and safety, and key members of your company. The team is responsible for guidelines and policies. So let's just take that comment down now. But what do we think about that? I mean, should there be that sort of team that goes across? I mean, Kristen, how does that fit in with what you're doing?
I mean, I think that's the perfect solution. I work for a small company. We don't have a safety and security team. We don't have a corporate tax team. We don't have a lot of those constituencies represented. So, but I agree in theory that it's got a number of stakeholders that have their own interests, and it's best to bring them all to the party. But ideally, it would be enabled through a tool, because that sounds like a very manual process, which is going to, have things fall through the cracks. So,
yeah, I mean, Laurie, if I can bring you in, I know we've talked about the Benivo tool, but there's an interesting aspect in there in terms of, the safety. And I know one of the other issues, of course, is insurance as well.
Well, the tool, right, puts all the information in one place, so all the different stakeholders will be able to see exactly what's happening, and there can be notifications, alerts, things that can proactively alert teams if anything may not be in sync or on target for the travel. And I think that's key, right? Keeping all the stakeholders up to speed.
Absolutely. And I think we'll pretty much finish on that note, that it's key. What we're going to do now is, let me just bring back our wonderful producer, Tally, and of course, Julia Onslow Cole. And just to say, I mean, amazing discussion. And but we're back next week. Next week, we're going to be talking, in a way, there's a certain level of similarity. We're going to be talking about I-9s in the US. We're talking about onboarding, the future of legal tech. And I'm super excited. We've got Robert Horsley, Daniel Brown, and Rico Fontana from Workrite. And then the other thing I just wanted to emphasize before we end, of course, as Tally has said, is that we have the top 100 AI champions list, and that is now open for you to nominate. So Tally, we've got 20 seconds left, but let me leave the final words to you.
Well, AI is the future and is the present. And since we know, and Laura, you just told us how you saw that in many of the conferences that you've been to, it's just sweeping the world, and especially global mobility. So, find your AI champions, nominate them. We want to hear from them. And don't forget to share your prompt with us and with the whole community.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to say goodbye to everybody. We are back next week to be talking about how compliance can get strategic. So everybody, hope you have a great, great week. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And a real big thanks to our guests, Julian and Dan from Vialto had to drop for a business meeting. Julia, as ever, many, many thanks for your immigration update. And to Anna and to Kristen and to Laurie, many, many thanks for giving us your insights on business travel. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week. Bye.